It was the kind of street where nothing ever happened. Clean houses. Small gardens. Same people walking at the same time every day. Everyone knew everyone. Or at least, that is what they believed. Daniel moved into the neighborhood on a cold evening. He was a simple man. He worked from home. He liked silence. That was why he chose this place. The house was old but strong, with white walls and a small fence. The first night, nothing felt wrong. The second night, he noticed the light. Across the street, in the house directly facing his, a window light turned on at exactly 2:11 a.m. It stayed on for 10 minutes. Then it turned off. Daniel thought nothing of it. On the third night, the same light turned on again. Same window. Same time. 2:11 a.m. Daniel checked the clock. He felt a small chill in his chest. This is strange, he whispered to himself. He tried to sleep again. But on the fourth night, something new happened. The light turned on at 2:11 a.m. And this time, someone was standing behind the curtain. Daniel could not see the face. Only a tall shadow. Still. Watching. The shadow did not move. Daniel closed his eyes and told himself it was nothing. Maybe a night worker. Maybe insomnia. But deep inside, his body felt wrong. His heart beat faster for no clear reason. The next morning, Daniel decided to introduce himself. He walked across the street and knocked on the neighbor's door. The house looked normal. Clean steps. Fresh paint. No strange signs. After a long pause, the door opened slightly. A man stood there. Tall. Thin. Pale skin. Cold eyes. Yes, the man asked. Hi, Daniel said politely. I'm Daniel. I just moved in across the street. The man stared at him without blinking. I'm Mark, he finally said. His voice was flat. No emotion. Daniel smiled. Nice to meet you. Mark nodded once. Then slowly closed the door. That was it. No welcome. No goodbye. That night, Daniel stayed awake. At 2:11 a.m., the light came on again. But this time, it stayed on longer. Daniel slowly walked to his window and looked out. The curtain across the street moved slightly. Then, it opened. Mark was standing there. This time, he was smiling. Not a normal smile. It was wide. Too wide. Daniel stepped back from the window, his breath shaking. Why is he watching me? Daniel whispered. From that night on, things began to change. Daniel started finding strange marks near his fence. Deep lines in the soil, like something heavy had been dragged back and forth. One morning, he found his trash bin turned upside down. Nothing stolen. Just destroyed. Another night, he heard footsteps outside his bedroom window. Slow. Careful. Patient. When Daniel looked outside, no one was there. But the neighbor's window light was on. Always watching. Daniel called the police once. They came, looked around, and found nothing. He's probably just odd, one officer said. Some people keep strange hours. But Daniel knew this was more than strange. This felt like a warning. One evening, Daniel received a note. It was placed neatly on his front door. No name. No envelope. Just one sentence written in black ink. You looked first. Daniel's hands shook. What does that mean, he thought. That night, he decided to fight back. If his neighbor was watching him, he would watch back. At 2:11 a.m., Daniel turned off all the lights in his house and stood in the dark. He waited. The neighbor's light turned on. Daniel slowly opened his curtain. Mark was already there. Smiling. Daniel raised his phone and turned on the camera. The moment the light from the phone appeared, Mark's smile disappeared. His face became empty. Slowly, Mark raised his hand, and waved. Not friendly. Not playful. It was slow. Careful. Like a signal. The next morning, Daniel woke up to find his fence broken. Wood snapped clean in half. On the broken wood, carved deeply, was a word. War. Daniel stepped back, his blood cold. This was no longer about fear. This was about control. Someone had started something dark. And Daniel had no idea how far it would go. Across the street, Mark stood behind his window. Watching. Waiting. The war had begun. After the word war appeared on the broken fence, Daniel could not sleep. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt alive. The police came again. They took photos. They wrote notes. But their faces showed doubt. No fingerprints, one officer said. No cameras caught anything. Daniel looked at Mark's house across the street. The windows were dark. Too dark. That night, Daniel installed small security cameras. One at the front door. One at the backyard. One facing the street. He felt safer. He was wrong. At exactly 2:11 a.m., all the cameras went black. Not frozen. Not broken. Just black. At the same moment, Daniel heard a soft knock on his door. Knock. 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 Slow. Calm. Patient. Daniel did not move. The knock stopped. Then a voice spoke through the door. You broke the first rule. The voice was Mark's. Daniel's throat went dry. What rule? Daniel asked, his voice shaking. Silence. When Daniel finally looked through the door camera, no one was there. But something was placed on the doorstep. A small piece of paper. Daniel waited until morning to open the door. On the paper, written neatly, were 3 lines. Rule 1, do not watch. Rule 2, do not record. Rule 3, do not interfere. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. This is my house, he said loudly. You don't control me. Across the street, a curtain moved. Mark was listening. From that day, the neighborhood felt wrong. Other neighbors stopped waving. Some avoided eye contact. Some closed their doors when Daniel walked by. It was like they all knew something. Daniel decided to ask an old woman named Mrs. Keller who lived 2 houses away. She hesitated before speaking. That house, she said softly, pointing at Mark's place, has a long history. What kind of history? Daniel asked. Mrs. Keller looked around, then leaned closer. People who notice too much, don't stay long. Daniel's heart sank. That night, the rules were tested again. Daniel stayed awake with the lights off. He did not look at Mark's window. But he listened. At 2:11 a.m., the neighbor's door opened. Footsteps crossed the street. Daniel held his breath. Something touched his front door handle. Slowly. Testing. Then a soft scratching sound began. Like metal on wood. Daniel clenched his fists. He did not open the door. The scratching stopped. The next morning, deep lines were carved into the door. 3 lines. Like claw marks. Rule 3 had been broken. Days passed. Daniel began to notice strange things in the neighborhood. A dog that used to bark every night, was gone. A family across the street moved out without warning. Their house stayed empty. Curtains open. Lights on at night. Mark's light still turned on at 2:11 a.m. Always watching. One night, Daniel saw something new. A child. A small figure standing beside Mark at the window. The child's face was pale. Eyes wide. Mouth open, like it wanted to scream but could not. Daniel stepped forward without thinking. The light turned off instantly. The next morning, Daniel searched online. Missing people. Old news articles. Police reports. He found one story from 10 years ago. Local child disappears in quiet neighborhood. The photo showed the same child. Daniel's blood ran cold. That evening, Daniel broke the final rule. He knocked on Mark's door. The door opened slowly. Mark stood there, smiling calmly. "You should not be here," Mark said. "What did you do to that child?" Daniel demanded. Mark's smile grew wider. "I keep balance," Mark replied. Before Daniel could react, the door slammed shut. That night, Daniel dreamed of the street. Every house was empty. Every window had someone watching. And Mark stood in the middle, smiling. When Daniel woke up, there was a new message carved into his fence. Final warning. Daniel understood one thing clearly. This was not just a neighbor dispute. This was something old. Something patient. And it was deciding whether Daniel deserved to stay. Across the street, the light turned on. 2:11 a.m. Mark was waiting. Daniel knew he was out of time. The words, "final warning," stayed in his mind all day. Every sound outside made him flinch. Every passing shadow felt close. That evening, Daniel packed a small bag. He decided to leave before nightfall. But when he tried to start his car, the engine would not turn on. The radio suddenly switched on by itself. A soft voice spoke. "You are already part of it." Daniel slammed the radio off and stepped out of the car. Across the street, Mark's front door was open. The house was dark inside. Inviting. Daniel backed away. Then he heard whispers. They came from every house on the street. From every window. Not loud. Not clear. Just enough to be heard. Daniel ran back into his house and locked the door. At 2:11 a.m., the power went out. The street lights died one by one. Daniel lit a candle and moved slowly through the house. Then he heard footsteps. Inside. Slow. Calm. Familiar. "Rules end tonight," Mark's voice said from the hallway. Daniel turned and saw him standing there, smiling. "How did you get in?" Daniel whispered. "You opened the door the first night," Mark replied. "When you looked." The walls began to breathe. The house felt alive. Mark stepped closer. "This street chooses watchers," he said. "Every generation, one stays. One watches. One keeps balance." Images filled the walls. Faces of people. Old neighbors. Children. Families. All watching. All of them noticed too much, Mark continued. And the house chose them. Daniel shook his head. "I won't stay." Mark's smile faded for the first time. "You already are staying," he said softly. The candle went out. Daniel felt cold hands grab his arms. Voices whispered his name. Then silence. Morning came. The street looked peaceful again. A moving truck stood in front of Daniel's house. A new family arrived. They smiled. They waved. Across the street, a window light turned on. At 2:11 a.m. a man stood behind the curtain. It was Daniel. His face was pale. His eyes were empty. And he was smiling.